Howdy, my name is CXCD, and today this video is going to be just a little bit different. Instead of overanalyzing every aspect of G5 and trying to create some kind of overarching unified theory on how G4 and G5 connect, I'm going to take a step back and we're going to have some fun. Because as we all know, making G5 make sense within the world of G4 is almost impossible. As a matter of fact, most theorists have decided to take up the idea that G5 is just a completely alternate timeline to G4. Like, they're not within the same universe at all. I think it's bonkers to not only separate G4 and G5 like that, but bonkers in the fact that this is where we've gotten to. Nothing makes sense anymore. So like I said, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna sit here with my legs crossed and tell you about my own AU. Headcanon. AU. Headcanon. See, I'm hesitant to call a headcanon, or a theory even, because hundreds of people will flood the comments and tell me every single way that I'm wrong, down to the most minute of details. Oh, you missed a fly on the wall in the corner of this one scene, so your theory is wrong, you know? Like, no, this is an AU, more like just a story. Even if it can hypothetically fit within the confines of G5, I'm still not gonna go there, because I know people are gonna call me out, and I don't like that. So I don't want people to be tearing it apart in the comments. I want you to share your own AU ideas. So, in the G5 movie, Zip, Izzy, and Sunny all go down to the train station, this big old creepy train station, or at least what used to be a train station at least. Might I add, I just want to say this real quick, whenever I watch the G5 movie, I get almost whiplash. The world building and setting up of future episodes is just unlike anything I've ever seen before in my life. We see the signs of yesteryear confirming that all of these different towns were once interconnected, and the tribes used to live in harmony. We see the age and decay of this place, and we know in our hearts of hearts that this place is long since been abandoned. We even see this portrait of the Wonderbolts, and man, I don't know what's about it with this scene, but when I first saw this picture of the Wonderbolts, my heart like genuinely clenched within my chest. Like, it was genuinely quite sad to see it. It's just so sad to see everything that FIM worked towards just being unceremoniously forgotten. I think the reason why G5 rubs a lot of fans the wrong way is because not only did they destroy G4, literally, but then also mishandled the series, so they destroyed G4 for no reason, basically. But anyways, while this group of friends talk in this area, they approach a huge, beautiful stained glass window. For the sake of the story, this is where the three ponies see the Unity crystals, or at least two of them. And they make the connection that they have to reunite the three crystals in order to restore magic in Equestria. But let's pause, because we're going to be focusing on this mirror for a while. The subject of today's video is the three ponies within the stained glass window. In the movie, there isn't actually a third pony. It's there to misdirect the characters to think they only have to find two, the Unicorn and the Pegasus crystals, when in reality there's actually a third Earth pony one. But I think it's safe to assume that the third glass window was just simply broken or something. That, and I found this image floating around online of the three characters. I don't know where this image comes from. I've watched some of the movie, I've watched the train station scene, and I can't find this part. So we'll take this random screen cap from Derpy Brewer I found, and we're gonna use this as our evidence, okay? Bear with me. When I wrote the script, it was 4 in the morning. I did not feel like looking around the rest of the movie for it, okay? So who exactly are these three ponies? Why are they important to the story? Why are they important enough to hold the three crystals and protect them? Of course, there's a few theories on why. If we were to turn this into a theory real quick and not a headcanon AU story, this could just be the representations of the tribes. They're not actually real ponies, but they're there to represent the three tribes. Maybe these were Twilight's students or something, or assistants. But this is my AU, and I decide, okay? And sit down there, young child, because I'm gonna tell you a story about these three ponies. A story about the Three Twilights. Years and years ago, Opaline was threatening the very foundations of Equestria itself. Equestria was starting to fall apart. Twilight was left with no choice. All of her friends long since dead, she had no pony to fall back onto. So, as a desperate last-ditch attempt to save Equestria, Twilight stored all the magic within these three crystals. One for the Earth ponies, one for the Pegasi, and one for the unicorns. This is what we know. This is probably as close to canon as it could possibly get. This happened. Let's get crazy now. With Opaline powerless, with all the Equestrian magic stored within these three crystals, Twilight was able to use those crystals and create a big shield spell that would keep Opaline outside of Equestria as long as there was an Equestria. But now she had the hard duty of protecting these crystals. How would she do that? Every pony she had once trusted turned to dust. And now, a lot of ponies were quite irritated with Twilight for taking their magic. So the solution came to her quickly, and after much deliberation, she had made up her mind. The only pony to protect these crystals was herself. Twilight, in a brave display of sacrificed herself for the betterment of Equestria. She used her magic to split herself into 3 parts. Her unicorn self, her Pegasus self, and her Earth Pony self. Each were tasked with taking these new crystals and protecting them under new settlements, separated by quite a lot of land. That way, if anybody were to ever, try to take the crystals back, they would have a very hard time getting one and then having to travel all the way to the next city. And I mean, there's probably technology by this point already, right? So they could probably telephone each other and say, hey, watch out, someone's coming to take the crystals, So there'd be ample amount of time for the ponies to alert each other that something bad is going to happen. Each of these ponies were different parts of Twilight, different parts of her personality. Each had parts of her memory, but none of them were really Twilight herself. For all intents and purposes, Twilight had, for lack of a better word, herself to make sure the crystals were protected for as long as possible. The first pony's name is Twilight Twinkle, based after the G3 character. She's a Pegasus and naturally the most bumbly and excited one, right? As Twilight Twinkle holds all of Twilight's childhood memories. She shares much of the same enthusiasm that Twilight did about learning, but very much like early season 1 Twilight is very closed off and reserved, and she doesn't like to share her enthusiasm very much with others. So she takes the Pegasus crystal and founds Zephyr Heights. Being on a mountain and with high-rise buildings, she models it after Camelot, because as she has all the memories of Twilight when she was young, Camelot would be, the most familiar location she has. She sets up a monarchy with her at the head, modeling it once again after Princess Celestia's monarchy, as it was the most familiar form of government she was. The next pony's name is Dusk Overcast. She takes the Earth Pony magic and has her personality and memories of FIM Twilight, basically. Basically, this is the Twilight that's the most like the one that we see in FIM. She founds Maritime Bay, and much like Twilight Twinkle, she's the most familiar with Ponyville and models Maritime Bay after Ponyville. I mean, that also holds up within production because Maritime Bay was originally supposed to be Ponyville. Did you know that? G5 was once a G4 reboot, and Maritime Bay was Ponyville. I'll talk about that some other day. The last pony is Solstice Sunlight, the unicorn. She has the memories of the very end of Twilight's life, and all she can remember is the crippling, sinking feeling of slowly losing Equestria. Despite being the most jaded and sad, she still recognizes that these crystals are Equestria's only chance of a second attempt, right? A second chance. And she will do anything to make sure Opaline does not happen again. She establishes Bridalwood. Instead of basing it on Canterlot, she decides to purposefully make it slow and boring, with the idea that potential wrong-uns will gloss over Bridalwood as a place that would potentially hold a crystal. You'd assume that holding a very, very powerful artifact would be held within top security prison, or like a top vault. But no, her idea was subversion of expectation. These 3 Twilights act like sisters to one another, as I guess they technically came from the same pony. They leave one another with their crystals and go found the settlements. Between these towns are massive railways that allow trade and the town members to go visit one another. However, there's an unexpected consequence of taking each crystal away like this. Instead of, let's say, Zephyr Heights being an even 1/3 split, a third Earth Pony, a third Pegasus, a third Unicorn, right? Instead, it slowly begins to turn into a 2/3 split, with Pegasus having the majority. And before they know it, for seemingly no reason, each town is completely separated by tribe, and those who aren't the majority tribe are frowned upon. Is this an analogy for racism? God damn it. Because rumors began circulating about the true nature of these towns, aka how Maritime Bay was a place to keep the Earth Pony magic safe, and how Bridalwood was made to keep Unicorn Crystal safe. This made each member of their tribe feel a certain obligation to go protect their crystal by living in that town. And they go do just that. Despite each of the tribes being in contact with one another via the train stations and still doing trade, nasty rumors begin developing about one another. At first, it's not as crazy as we see what's in G5, obviously, but it's kind of similar to what we see in Season 9 of FIM, that the Pegasi have it out for the Earth Ponies, And the Earth Ponies are secretly plotting against the Unicorns. That sort of thing. Suddenly, each town wants to cut ties with one another, move on from the other tribes, and forget about them. The only thing that's stopping this from actually happening is the 3 Twilights, each doing their part to make sure nothing completely boils over. Of course, as Twilight had split herself into 3, she had also given up her immortality. Eventually, the 3 Twilights began aging. Twinkle decides to continue the monarchy by having children, but the other 2 don't. Instead, they try to find a suitable replacement for themselves, somebody who is trustworthy enough to protect the crystal with their life. I gotta change leg. This is starting to really hurt. Instead, the other 2 decide to try to find suitable replacements for themselves. Some pony who would be willing to protect the crystals with their life. The first one to go is Twinkle, and just like the other 2 Twilights feared, the new monarchy, despite being Twinkle's children, completely cut all ties with the other 2 Twilights. The remaining Twilights, Dusk and Solace, knew what was going to happen next. Despite their best efforts of making more trade and trying to host, I don't know, parties or something, right? Nothing seems to work, and the three tribes keep developing hostile feelings for one another. Despite their best efforts, they can't prevent Equestria from fragmenting. Dusk is lucky and manages to find an Earth Pony family who still has memories of old Equestria and is willing to listen to Dusk's insane rants about unity and friendship and all this crazy stuff, right? This family is willing to protect the Earth Pony Crystal, and this is the exact same family that will eventually go on to have Sunny Star Scout. Dusk gives this family the Earth Pony Crystal, and eventually dies. When Dusk goes, just like they feared, so did Maritime Bay. Solstice is the last mare standing. Despite being the most experienced with ruling, she is unable to find some pony to look after the Unicorn Crystal. Due to her own jaded and sad outlook on life, and due to her own wariness with watching Equestria fall in the past, she can't trust any pony enough to give them the crystal, and she can't make up her mind until she finally dies. The Unicorn Crystal is just another object to sort through in her house, right? It's probably auctioned off along with the rest of her stuff. Despite Twilight's best attempt at keeping Equestria together in one piece, Equestria falls into a 300-year dark age. It isn't until Sunny, a descendant of the Earth Pony family who's given the crystal, and Pip and Zip, descendants of Twinkle, along with a member of Bridalwood named Izzy, they team up to get magic back, and that starts a new generation. And that's my fun story. Honestly, kind of ended on a little bit of a sour note. Usually stories are big and grandiose with their endings, right? And everything usually works out in the end. But from G4 to G5, I mean, things had to have gone wrong, right? In G5, all we know is that something went really bad to get to the point we see in a new generation where all the tribes hate each other. Honestly, I think the story can fit really well within G5's universe. I think if I did present this as a theory, it wouldn't really be a bad one. It's just there's not a lot of evidence for Twilight splitting up or whatever, except for the stained glass portrait, right? One thing that I'm still a little bit undecided about is whether or not Solstice had a family as well. Being the most jaded and sad, I wouldn't imagine she would, but it would explain this crazy unicorn in G5. This is her great-granddaughter or whatever, right? Alternatively, this could also just be Solstice. Solstice, not trusting any pony else but herself to guard the crystal, decided to experiment with life-extending spells. The reason why I didn't make that into the story is because, one, life-extending spells? Who has that? I mean, maybe Alicorn Twilight does. And two, the crystal still fell to Alphabetal's hooves. So she still failed her job of protecting the crystal if this was Solstice. No, I think the story is better if Solstice just died and the crystal was just given away willy-nilly, right? I'm also aware that the story could work if Sunny was also a descendant of Dusk. Decided not to go that route because of shipping, honestly. That would mean that Zip, Pip, and Sunny are all related together. I understand that, like, however long G4 to G5 was, I'm sure that their genetic makeup is so vastly different that they're no longer related to each other, basically. But I don't know, just if I made every pony related to each other, it would just rub me the wrong way. So there you have it. My story is done. How do you guys like it? Story time, you know, I made sure to grab a book and just, you know, read it off like I was reading a story. That'd be fun, right? So right now, within the CXCD universe, you can skip this now, by the way. If you're just a casual viewer, you can just leave. It doesn't matter, right? But if you are a hardcore CXCD fan, stick around for a second. I'm not going to go into very specific details about what I'm trying to do right now, but I'll kind of give you the general approach. Me and another YouTuber are currently trying to collaborate on a potential Generation 6 of MLP. Now, what the hell does that mean, right? What do you mean Generation 6? You're just a YouTuber, right? What we're trying to do, and what I really, really think would be very beneficial for the entire fandom, is create a pilot of a potential Generation 6 and present that pilot to Hasbro. So as of right now, my life goal is making that pilot and showing it to Hasbro. So if you're an artist and would like to, you know, take a crack at drawing concept art, just reach out to me, because we do have like 8 or 9 episodes already in our heads for what a G6 season 1 would look like. It's a big project, and it may end in a DMCA strike before we can even finish the pilot, but it is something I'm actively working towards. So yeah, subscribe, I guess, and I'll see you later. I don't really got much else to say.
I bite at the hand that feeds me, slap at the face that eats me. Some kind of animal cannibal made impressions on me.